Welcome, listeners. Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights, here with Mike Sommer again. Looking forward to this. This was something that was brewing, and we're going to hear from Mike on a topic that he's actually dealt with this on his excellent podcast. But first, thanks sponsors: Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication, ComC.com, Heritage Auctions, Huggins and Scott Auctions, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, and last but not least, Burbank Sports Cards, Ryan Veras. So welcome, Mike. We're going to talk about alternative selling platforms. When I did that episode with Doug Cale a while back, you responded, and I had other responses, and I think that was not intended to be exhaustive. In fact, it was intended to kind of get the conversation started, and I'm delighted to continue the conversation with you. You did an excellent series on ComC.
Thank you.
Multi-part series that I thought was excellent. Again, they're one of my sponsors. I'm actually a fan and a user of ComC. And I don't really want to shortchange them, except today, I really would rather direct people to either my previous podcasts or to your podcast. I think, did you do a 3-part series?
Yeah, it was a 3-part series on ComC, kind of covering.
So listeners, go see Wax Pack Hero for that. But there are others that Doug and I didn't talk about, specifically Facebook Marketplace. And I think Sport Lots didn't get really a lot of action. So wanted to get a little dialogue going with you about when, where, why, and how those would make sense for somebody.
Sure. Yeah. I've kind of talked a little bit about my approach to selling. I use a multifaceted approach depending on the type of cards that I'm selling. And so, and I usually outline it with eBay for things that I want to sell quickly and timely. Typically for me, that's cards that are either sets, like complete sets, or cards worth over $20 or so. I use ComC mainly for cards in that $1 to $20 range, but Sport Lots is where things come in for me, where I found them as a great place to move base cards and kind of your standard insert cards. You know, there's a big number of set collectors out there who use Sport Lots to help fill their sets. And so it's a platform that has allowed me to move base and insert cards, even commons that a lot of people view as worthless, but it's allowed me to turn that into some nice extra revenue.
What explain Sport Lots, the LOTS part. Are you selling on Sport Lots lots, or do you put a lot of cards on there and sell them one at a time?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't
order there.
Yeah, I don't know why I think the name that they chose whenever it was set up does sometimes lead to some confusion, because it's not just a lot in the traditional sense that is sold. My typical order is usually, it's usually a group of cards that are all from the same set. That's probably the most common. So, I had an order today of a bunch of Upper Deck hockey cards, that all came from the same Upper Deck set. I had a set of, or yesterday I had a big order of Michael Jordan cards that all came from one of the Upper Deck special Michael Jordan sets. And so a lot of times it's set collectors, you can tell based on how those orders are put together. There's other times where I'll get a player collector that'll just search for a particular player and go down my list and pick out every card of a particular player that I want. And so it really is kind of that blend of player collectors and set collectors that make up my typical orders. They do have an auction functionality that lets you sell in lots, and there'll be times where I'll bundle up a big flat rate box full of heritage cards from a particular year or something like that if I've got a lot of extras that I don't want to list individually. And so there are lots available on the site, but most of my orders it would seem to be from set collectors or player collectors.
How fast can you input cards into there? I mean, is it basically, if you did have a lot of, Jose Canseco cards and you wanted to put them up there, does it take a long time? Is it how simple is the input process? When we're not talking about ComC so much today, but with ComC, you send them the cards, they do that work. So what's involved there in terms of inputting it, making it available on Sport Lots?
Yeah, so their listing process is really set driven. And so it's optimized for people who are going to have things organized by set and then in number order. And if you've got that done, that's where the bulk of the time for me comes into play. And so if you've got that done, it goes pretty quick, because their listing screens are pretty much like a big spreadsheet or database entry screen. And so I usually recommend to people that if Sport Lots is great if you've got a large number of cards from a particular set that you can get in order and then list. It is not great if you've got a hodgepodge of random serial numbered cards, or you get a big player collection. that you want to list, that's not what it's for, because for you to be able to pull the cards, I need to know what box I need to go to get that particular year and set and that type of thing. And that's what I found the most success with.
So player collectors, so sport lots not as appropriate, or it's just a little more cumbersome for entering?
If you're a buyer of players, it works great. You can still search by player and see the list of cards that are for sale. As a seller, though, it would be pretty cumbersome if your collection is organized by, or your inventory is organized by player, it would be challenging to use sport lots.
Gotcha. Okay. You've also mentioned Facebook Marketplace as being kind of a local option. And that's, I've heard some criticism of it, that it doesn't have the same policing that eBay has, but it's better than Craigslist. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. So personally, for me, the things that I sell on Facebook Marketplace locally are the bulk of what's left from a big collection that I purchased. If I've got a lot of random things that don't seem to fit well for my sport lots listings, they're not in that $1 to $20 range that I would typically sell on ComC. That's the type of stuff that I will pass on or move on in some of these big collections. If I've got a lot of 80s and 90s complete sets and some of that type of stuff that aren't real economical to sell on eBay, and I've got a handful that I take to my local show, I'll bundle all of that stuff up into a big 20, 30, 40,000 card collection, quote unquote collection, that I'll list on Facebook Marketplace and essentially just try to pass it on to somebody else who likes to go through that stuff. I leave some good players and good stars and things in there. It's not meant to take advantage of somebody. I want them to still be happy, but I price them pretty low and use it to kind of offload that bulk inventory.
So it's better than giveaway stuff, but it's not high value stuff. One of the questions I have is, if you do have a player lot, because I'm organizing more of my cards by player, and if you had let's say you have 200 assorted Jose Canseco cards, and they're a variety of years, and 100 of them are different. Where do you sell those? I mean, to list them individually on sport lots sounds like that would take a long time. To send them into ComC, you're taking now a 35-cent hit just to get them listed, and many of those are already fully populated there. They're not cards that Rob Barris lists on his buy list. Again, I was wondering if, the shipping is not prohibitive, but as you increase the numbers, the shipping can be pretty prohibitive. But what is your sense of that? I've wondered if you had 100 different, if you couldn't sell 100 different for the same price that you could sell 200 assorted.
Yeah, it's for those types of things. For me, there's a couple different things that I'll do. And one is I do set up at a local show, that we've got a local monthly show. And those are things that I will take, Canseco in particular, except for outside of a few of his more prominent cards, I would have those in my quarter box at a local show. And people still have a desire to come and go through those guys and those stars from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And then the other thing that I'll do is if I acquire too many, I start filling up those boxes too many, a lot of times I will take those star player lots and put them on eBay as a bulk listing of 200 of this star. And I found success in being able to move them there. You don't necessarily get top dollar, but it is a way that you can get those in the hands of people who love to collect those particular stars. Agreed.
What I was wondering about with these alternative selling platforms, I'm just wondering, again, a show is a local thing where you just take your box or your boxes to the show and see what happens. But I would assume Facebook Marketplace could actually work for that kind of stuff too, if there was a local tie to the player. I'm in Dallas, and I had a bunch of Clayton Kershaw cards. Well, he went to high school here, and so I would assume there would be some interest in that, and that would, you'd save on the postage, and so would that make sense?
Yeah, I think that would make sense. And some of that happens around here in Central Illinois. We pull both from the two Chicago teams as well as St. Louis fans where we're at. And so that is something that's done. And sport lots is an option if you do it as that player collection using their auction functionality, where you can put it as a bulk listing of those 100 Canseco cards or whatever, and then run it as an auction on sport lots. But yes, like you said before, listing all of those individually on sport lots would be a challenge.
And just putting you on the spot, I mean, I don't know how much of a math guy you are, but 100 different, is 100 different equal, worse, or better than 200 assorted?
Is 100 different than Are you saying 200 random that might have some doubles and all of that mixed in?
Yeah, I mean, can you get a nickel? In other words, if it's 200 cards assorted, that's a nickel a piece. Maybe that's $10. And if it's 100 different, maybe that's 10 cents a piece, and that's still the same $10. And it's less cards, but it's more work if they're not already organized into different. I mean, do you have any sense of that?
Yeah, I don't know that I've done the analysis. I know that I've sold both. I've sold some lots where they are all unique, and I've sold some where it's assorted. It seems a little bit like it's a different buyer. There's buyers who just want everything, and there's buyers who only want those unique ones. And then there's even probably buyers who say, yeah, I know you've got 100 different ones, but what's every one of those 100? Because I've already got a bunch, and I only want to buy this if it's the ones that I don't have, or there's a good portion of ones I don't have. And so I've had success with both, but I think it's a different buyer.
That's one of the things I want to experiment with. That's one of the things I talked about a month ago or so about doing some eBay experiments, because eBay is the broadest marketplace, reaches the most eyeballs. And if I did some experiments mainly at fixed price, I would, other than some flukes, I would kind of know if people just pass on it, or if they float some, ridiculous, would you take kind of offers against my fixed price listing. But at least you have an idea. If it's crickets, then you realize you're either way too high. But any other, we're almost out of time. What any other alternative selling platforms that we haven't discussed, or that you think are promising, or is there an opportunity in the marketplace for some new entity?
Yeah, those are the three that are foundational, what I consider as foundational to the way that I buy and sell cards. With Facebook being the way that I try to move off a lot of the bulk inventory later. I'm curious to see starstock.com is going to be launching soon as kind of a hybrid between ComC and maybe eBay and some of the other options there, from a fixed price perspective. I'm interested to see the splash that they are going to make in the industry as they try to get off the ground and get started. It sounds like they're trying to bring a little more of the analytics of values into their platform. And so they haven't quite launched yet. So it's hard to say how well that's going to go, but it sounds like they've got some interesting ideas.
It does, but again, I like the be positive tone. But could you think of I'm hoping this is not the case, because I'm Switzerland now. I'm neutral. I'm hoping that everybody in the hobby does well. But part of me says, could they have picked a worse time to launch? I mean, it might turn out good for them because people are at home and have time to check out new things. But on the other hand, we're in uncertain times, and people, don't necessarily. Well, what is your sense of that?
Yeah, I think it is definitely a challenging time to get started. But at the same time, I think we've seen through the first few weeks of this, coronavirus impact, that some of the online sales are still fairly strong. I think eBay sales have been strong. My own personal Sport Lots and ComC sales have taken a small hit maybe, but still, relatively speaking, I'm still doing pretty well, through this first month of Corona impact. So I think it would be much more of a challenge if they were launching something that was going to be public facing or require a lot of physical, interaction. But with them being another online platform, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Well, we wish them well. I know they've sponsored a bunch of podcasts, and again, I'm hopeful that there's always, it's like restaurants. There's always room for one more if the food is great. And the service is good. So thanks, Mike. Thanks, listeners. Be back again tomorrow with another episode. Mike, keep up the good work, and listeners, check out Wax Pack Hero.